Hi, and welcome back. This is week 5, video number 2. In this video, I wanted to briefly talk about taking notes while you're reading. Taking notes while you're reading is a really important skill, and most people do not take notes while reading. In fact, if I think back to when I was in school, I don't think anyone ever taught me to take notes. You were just told, take notes during a class, take notes as you're preparing for a test. But nobody ever really emphasized how to do it. In this session, we're going to talk about some tips for taking notes. And then in our next video, I'm going to introduce you to a note-taking system. Before we start talking about taking notes, we do need to talk about highlighting. Highlighting can be both good and bad. Highlighting is not a substitution for taking notes that you actually do write down as you're working through something, but it can be helpful in terms of identifying main points. Where it gets bad, though, is when people are not judicious when they're highlighting. So I've seen people as I'm walking through campus, seen students reading through textbooks or reading through articles, and they're literally highlighting every single thing that they're reading. So they're moving the highlighter as they're going from sentence to sentence. That actually is a bad way of highlighting because it really doesn't help you hone in on important information. So highlighting is okay, but again, I recommend that you use it really judiciously. So force yourself to only highlight main points. Or if you tend to be the kind of person who highlights a lot, try to put in a system where you use one color for main points and another color for extra ideas that aren't necessarily main points. Note-taking can be done on the computer or it can be done by hand, but most experts recommend doing it by hand. There's something in that process of actually, like in the brain, of actually moving your hand and taking notes down on paper that helps you recall information. So while computers are great, I do encourage you to do note-taking by hand, unless, again, you're the type of person, for whatever reason, does absolutely everything on a computer. But going through and actually noting stuff down and going through that process of writing really somehow helps you retain information. Note-taking has been proven to enhance recall. Okay, so that's great when you're thinking about a test or you're thinking about preparing for an exam. It improves understanding, so you actually get more out of your reading if you take notes. And it also saves time because it reduces the need for rereading. So if you take notes, you don't need to sit and read a chapter a third and a fourth time to get all of the information. In terms of general strategies for note-taking, the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you're paraphrasing information. Don't just copy, okay? So don't just copy full sentences from what it is that you're reading onto your note paper. Try to use your own words where you can. And again, that's a little bit of a brain trick. Something goes on in the brain when you force yourself to come up with your own way of saying something that makes you store it in longer term memory. So it actually helps you remember. You want to focus on main points, okay? Don't get distracted by smaller details. And you want to compress ideas into your own words. You also want to make sure that you use short forms or visual markers like arrows or stars or something to pull your attention to big, important ideas. You also probably want to consider using an accepted note-taking strategy. In our next video, I'm going to introduce you to the most famous note-taking strategy that's out there, the Cornell method, that a lot of people in healthcare use, both to prepare for exams, so as they're reading textbooks, but then also when they're doing their own research, so when they're reading articles or reading book chapters. In the next video, I'll explain the Cornell method to you and go through it. Talk to you in our next video.